I'm Deb Knepp. I work for the United States Department of Agriculture, specifically for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I'd like to introduce to you Allie Pudlo. She's the St. Joseph County Soil and Water Conservation District Environmental Education Coordinator. And both of our agencies are part of the Indiana Conservation Partnership. We work with a vast number of agencies and organizations getting conservation on the land. Allie and I are actually located in the same office, and part of what we do out of that office is not only technical assistance, financial programs to help with funding of conservation programs, but education. So Allie is the education coordinator and handles most of the education out of our office. And so she would like to talk to you today about resources available for education.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Deb.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about growing knowledge. And so these are resources available for you if you are just getting started with farm to school program, or you currently have an established farm to school program and you're just looking for ways to incorporate more into it. So we're going to be talking about the resources that are available within our region of the North Central SARE region here in the United States. So I hope you enjoy. So specifically, our agenda is going to talk briefly about what does farm to school entail, what's out there for you and your school, as well as a question session at the end. So for those of us that may not be as familiar with farm to school, what does it entail? Farm to School centers around efforts to serve local foods in school and early childcare and education food programs, but it extends further and it also applies to a variety of initiatives throughout the United States, including Indiana, looking at school garden programs, fundraisers using local agricultural products, farmer visits to school classrooms and cafeterias, in addition to field trips to nearby farms and more. So farm to school is nothing new. In fact, they've been increasing in popularity over the last decade. Over 67,000 schools across the United States participate in farm to school. And with farm to school, there is a big emphasis placed on hands-on learning. So getting students engaged within the classroom and outside of the classroom. So this is just information pulled from a recent farm to school census that was distributed to school food authorities throughout the state of Indiana. And as you can see here, there's been a huge percentage, about 43 to 44% of schools that hold student field trips to farms within their community to be able to support farm to school activities. But there's also holding taste tests and cooking demos at schools, having farmers visit within the classrooms, using educational edible school gardens, and more. But what's out there for me in my school? So there are quite a few resources available to schools all throughout the United States and within the North Central region of the Sustainable Ag and Research area that we'll be focusing on today. There's programs, curriculum and lesson plans, educational tools, online resources, and of course, grants that are available. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down each of these categories and focusing on those categories just to give an idea of what is available within your community or your state, as well as looking further beyond that. So we're going to start off with programs. And again, we're going to be focusing, of course, within the North Central region of the Sustainable Ag and Research areas, but we're going to start off, of course, with what's available nationally too. So if you're just getting started with farm to school, these may be great resources for you to look into. The first is the Patrick Leahy Farm to School program. This is a program that's administered through the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, Food and Nutrition Service. What they have done is they've compiled a database of information and resources on grants, research, technical assistance, as well as training. They also submit a monthly e-letter called The Dirt, in which they include new and upcoming research on farm to school, upcoming grant opportunities, and more. Another resource that you may want to look into is the National Farm to School Network. So this is a nationwide nonprofit whose mission is to increase access to local food and nutrition education to improve children's health, strengthen family farms, and cultivate vibrant communities. Now, the National Farm to School Network not only has a resource database of articles, they have also created a nationwide network of partners and members and have displayed them on an interactive map that you can actually play around with on their website. So with the database, with this nationwide network, you can actually click on your state on the interactive map, and it will show you a few organizations and partners within the state that are helping to implement and strengthen farm to school across the state. But now we're going to focus on a state-by-state basis, and these are just some examples of different programs within each state. So we're going to start off with Illinois here with the Illinois Farm to School Network. This is a program that's led by a nonprofit called 7 Generations Ahead, and their mission is to promote the development of healthy and sustainable communities. And one highlight that I wanted to highlight from them is their toolkit, because it's so well organized and nicely laid out. So that's what's featured here on the right is the toolkit. So you can get started and look at each of these resources from getting started with creating a farm to school program all the way through farm to summer. So looking at maybe activities to do throughout the summer, farmers and producers, funding, outreach toolkit, and even listening to stories in their podcast series called Illinois Stories, where they interview and talk with other producers and members of the community looking to do farm to school. In Indiana, we have the Indiana Agriculture in the Classroom, which is a program that is facilitated by Indiana Farm Bureau and coordinated by USDA. This is a grassroots agricultural outreach program for school children in grades pre-K through 12th grade. And what is done through this program is registered volunteers across the state of Indiana visit classrooms to teach nearly 60,000 students about agriculture through in-class lessons, hands-on activities, educational events, on-farm experiences, and field trips as well. So check with your state's Farm Bureau and see if you have any similar programs, because you may have some and may not be aware of them. For example, Texas's Farm Bureau has a similar program, but definitely make sure to reach out and see what's available in your area. Next, we have Iowa with Iowa Farm to School and Early Care Network. This is a program overseen by Iowa's Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, also in partnership with Iowa Department of Education. Now, what they have is they have resources broken down into 3 categories: early care and education, so focusing on the pre-K age level and education and getting them started with learning about farm to school and where their food comes from; food education and gardening; and local procurement. So looking at local farmers and producers in the area that you may be able to procure local produce and foods from in order to help establish local foods within your school cafeteria, for example. They have multiple established initiatives for funding throughout the year, and one such initiative is A Garden is the Way to Grow. This is offered only in the springtime, but it gives schools a chance to get funds to establish gardens along with garden and classroom supplies. In Kansas, there's the Kansas Rural Center. Their mission is to promote the long-term health of the land and its people through education, research, and advocacy that advance an economically viable, ecologically sound, and socially just food and farming system. Trainings and educational opportunities are available for farmers and producers, so those that are looking to partner with maybe local schools or organizations that want to establish their farm to school program. And there's also activities, field trips, and hands-on learning and farm visit opportunities for schools on their website as well. In Michigan, through Michigan State University, there is the Center for Regional Food Systems, and their mission is to engage the people of Michigan, the United States, as well as the world in applied research, education, and outreach to develop regionally integrated sustainable food systems. They provide farm to school outreach resources, technical assistance, and research and policy education for those that are looking to get started. In Minnesota, there is a collaboration with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture and many other partners like the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, the Minnesota Institute for Sustainable Ag, and the Research Sustainable Development Partnerships, as well as many schools and farmers and the University of Minnesota Extension in order to promote and expand farm to school throughout the state. They have multiple programs, training, curriculum, and promotional packages to be able to further their mission of spreading farm to school throughout the state. They have a toolkit for school food service, looking at getting local foods into school cafeterias, and they even have a documentary about farm to school as well. In Missouri, through the University of Missouri Extension and other partners in the state, there is Missouri Farm to School. They provide support, resources, and training to schools, educators, and food service staff. And they also have information for farmers, vendors, and parents on how to get started with implementing farm to school programs in their community. Through Nebraska, there is the Nebraska Farm to School that is led by the Nebraska Department of Education. They have compiled resources of webinars, events, research and resources, and even grants and funding for those that are looking to get started with farm to school or to add more to their farm to school program. They also have multiple outreach events and programs to support current farm to school efforts. One example is Nebraska Thursdays, in which schools statewide serve a Nebraska sourced meal in school cafeterias on the first Thursday of each month. So the first Thursday of each month, children in these school cafeterias are getting a locally sourced meal. In North Dakota, we have their Department of Agriculture, who has created a system of networking, farm food safety training, and collaborations with partners like the North Dakota Farmers Union in order to get farm to school throughout their state. Through this program, they have been able to help schools purchase farm fresh fruits, vegetables, eggs, and meat and other meat products, honey, dairy, and more from local producers for the purpose of sourcing school lunch menus. In Ohio, the lead organization on farm to school in the state is Ohio State University Extension. Through them and other partners in the state, they're able to offer trainings and resources to support the local procurement, serving, and teachings of local food in schools for all ages across the state. In South Dakota, the Dakota Rural Action, a statewide nonprofit community organizing group, is who helps to work with farm to school on a variety of local food issues as well. They help to create actually a South Dakota Local Foods Directory resource and even a Rural Action Farmer Network to be able to look at local foods and local producers in the area to help further support farm to school. And they even have a task force, which serves as that connection to resources, state and federal agencies, regional support groups, training and networking opportunities, and more, just geared towards those farm to school efforts and creating a culture of health within the school system. And then finally, in Wisconsin, there is the Wisconsin Farm to School program. This was a grassroots community effort in which each region of the state is supported by several partners like state agencies, universities, nonprofit and for-profit businesses in order to further grow farm to school activities throughout the state. So within each region, they're helping to build local food supply chains to schools, agriculture and nutrition and culinary education, and even school gardening as well. So with these programs, definitely keep in mind that these are just examples of a program in each state, but there may be many more. So definitely check and see what's available in your state. And we're going to move on here to curriculum and lesson plans. So you may have already gotten started with your farm to school program, but you're looking for ways to incorporate more into your curriculum or more into the lesson plans. And so there are tons of resources and tons of available curriculum and lesson plans all throughout each state, as well as online too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So one way to get Farm to School incorporated is by helping to celebrate National Farm to School Month in October. So through the National Farm to School Network website, there are a ton of outreach resources and activities in order to help your school and your students help celebrate and bring awareness to Farm to School by celebrating National Farm to School Month. In addition, there are organizations that help create curriculum that they make publicly available. One such organization is the National Association of Conservation Districts, or NACD. Every year, they have a stewardship week in which the topics vary year to year, but they can be tied back to Farm to School fairly easily. So one example is the theme for 2022 was Healthy Soils Are Full of Life. And they produce a lot of educational materials and activity booklets, which are what are featured on the slide here on the right. So they create information, activities, and resources that you can use to further bolster or improve or incorporate more into your Farm to School program. There's also an organization that's more based out of the eastern half of the United States, but they may have information that would be good for you to look at and to think about adapting to your state or your community. This is Growing Minds. They're an Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project program, or ASAP. Their mission is to help local farms thrive, link farmers to markets and supporters, and build healthy communities through connections to local food. So their website features a ton of free lesson plans, recipes, a searchable database of local food and farm children's literature, and more. It's all geared for grades pre-K through 12th grade. And in addition to that, they also have training for teachers, school nutrition staff, parents and community members, and even farmers and agricultural professionals. Through this program, they also help with schools in their area getting seeds to help start school gardens, mini grants, and even promotional materials. So even though this group is outside of our North Central region, they may help inspire ideas for you to help start things within your community or to look for things that may be similar in your community too. Next, we have Agriculture in the Classroom, which is a nationwide program implemented by state-operated programs. Their mission is to increase agricultural literacy through K through 12 education. And when they look at agricultural literacy, they're thinking about an agriculturally literate person as being one who can understand and can communicate the source and value of agriculture as it affects our quality of life. So this is something that would be very nice to implement in addition to what you're currently doing or thinking about doing for your farm to school program. And they also, just like with the previous organization, Growing Minds, feature lesson plans, recipes, and a searchable database of local food and farm children's literature and more. So you can look at a national scale what is available out there. So those are just a few examples, but what if you already have some curriculum in mind, or you feel like you're covered on curriculum, but you're looking for things that are more hands-on to be able to incorporate in your farm to school program? This is where utilizing what we'll call educational tools come in. So looking at things that can visually help students recognize or kind of make that further connection of farm to school program. And so, of course, one of the biggest educational tools that we normally think of with a farm to school program are school and community gardens. So this is one of the best ways to be able to help make that connection for students and for children in the community about where their food is coming from and how their food grows and gets to be from a plant to what's on their plate. So if you have resources to do so, you can always visit a local school or community garden, or you can even think about creating your own. So with a school garden, for example, this is something that you can do on your own, and you can design and implement it in a number of ways. But it's going to depend on a few things that you may want to consider and think about, such as the amount of space that you have available, the climate in your area, the soil type that's in your area where you're thinking of putting this garden, how healthy or contaminated your soil is, the site, if it's easy and safe for both students and teachers to access. Are there any nearby or dependable water sources? Is the site protected from potential rodents or pests? Is the site big enough for future growth 5 or 10 years down the road? Is the site exposed to enough sunlight throughout the day for plants to grow? What are you looking to plant? Are you looking to plant vegetables, herbs, flowers? And are there enough volunteers to be able to help, especially during school breaks like summer break? But there are a few other tools that you can use as well. In addition to having a school or community garden nearby, you can also use soil test kits to make that further connection. So with soil test kits, you can actually test the soil around your school, around the garden, or your property in order to make sure that the soil is healthy and make that connection with students about the importance of having healthy soil for plants to grow in and in what conditions plants can grow in. So you can either put a test together, like here in the picture, or you can buy a pre-made kit. And with these kits, usually you're looking for things like soil pH, maybe the amount of organic matter in the soil, phosphorus levels in the soil, and more. And to further think about soil health, you can also use things like rain simulators, for example. So plants need soil to grow in. They need specifically healthy soil to grow in. And healthy soil is able to retain quite a bit of water. So with a rain simulator like this, you can see how different agricultural practices help to either improve soil health or not improve soil health. And so you can actually visually show students how different things like traditional farming methods like conventional tillage actually don't help retain water or help improve soil health compared to other methods like no-till or cover crops. Now, these may be available with local agencies like soil and water districts, so you may want to check around your area to see if they have something like this available for you to borrow, or even to have them set it up and do a program at your school. In addition to rain simulators, you could also have, especially if you're doing a very large event, a soil health trailer available. And so these soil health trailers, like you can see in the picture here, are very interactive and emphasize students going in and learning on their own, being able to interact and learn. So with these soil health trailers, this one here pictured, for example, is from Allen County Soil and Water Conservation District here in Indiana. But you can see that there's a few different displays that discuss soil and what it is, soil health, how it's important, stormwater pollution, and even how water quality is in rural and municipal areas. So there may actually be one nearby you. There are a few soil health trailers across the country. So double check and see if there's one available in your area the next time you want to do a very big outreach event. Finally, there's also farm field trips that you can utilize as well. And this is great, especially if you're looking to create or establish partnerships within the community or strengthen those partnerships with local producers and growers. So if you have the resources to do so, a field trip is an excellent option. So with a farm field trip, students get to go to a local producer's farm and they're able to see where their food is coming from. They're able to talk with the farmer, and the farmer is able to explain how their food is grown and cared for until it is finally harvested and then distributed throughout the community. And so it's a great way to be able to make those connections to further strengthen farm to school programs within your community. Now, what about online resources? There are quite a few online resources, and so these are just a few examples of some that may be available online to you. But one such online resource is the Soil Health Institute. This is a nonprofit whose mission is to safeguard and enhance the vitality and productivity of soil through scientific research and advancement. So their goal is to be able to research and explain the importance of soil health and spread that information. What they've done is they've actually created a 60-minute documentary that features farmers that utilize soil health practices and soil health experts all across the United States to talk about the importance of having healthy soil. This is a great film to actually watch, especially if you teach higher levels like high school or college age kids. There's accompanying lesson plans for them as well. And the best part is it's free on YouTube. So you can actually go to YouTube, type in Living Soil Film, and it should be one of the first videos that pops up. Another online resource is the Pollinator Partnership. They're a nonprofit whose mission is to promote the health of pollinators, critical to food and ecosystems, through conservation, education, and research. So even though their focus is on pollinators, you can easily, just like with the Soil Health Institute and soil health, tie it back in how all of these different connections are so important with farm to school and maintaining local food systems. So they have information on pollination and how pollinators affect agriculture and how they help to make the food that we eat and enjoy, the environment, and even educational tools that they use to help promote National Pollinator Week, which is in June every year. There's also an organization called Farm Aid, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to build a vibrant family farm-centered system of agriculture in America. And so what they do is they try to bring awareness to the loss of family farms and help promote food from local farms and support that movement of farm to school by holding an annual festival every year. And so what they do is they help spread that awareness by having a music festival every year. On their website, they also happen to have resources broken down depending on who you are. If you're a farmer, a student, a school food administrator, a parent, a teacher, an advocate, they have resources broken down for you. And if you're interested in learning more about them, they actually have their festival being held later this year in Noblesville, Indiana. Additionally, there's also another nonprofit organization that's helping to bring awareness called Kiss the Ground. So they help bring awareness to regeneration and regenerative ag practices through storytelling, education, and advocacy. So they're focusing on regenerative ag and soil health, and that can also be tied back into your farm to school program. Just like the Soil Health Institute, they have a documentary too called Kiss the Ground Movie, and that is available on Netflix. But it's a really great way to show even younger students the importance of having healthy soil for farm to school programs and to help with food security and food systems in your local community. They have also, in addition to that movie, multiple resource guides from the introduction to regenerative ag to a children's pathway guide that you can use in addition with showing that film as well. Now, last but not least are grants. So there are tons of grants available out there for you if you are looking to get started with the farm to school program or looking to add more to your current program. So one of the most well-known is the USDA Patrick Leahy Farm to School Grant Program. So annually, USDA awards competitive farm to school grants that support the planning, developing, and implementation of farm to school programs in your community. Now, to be eligible to apply, you have to be one of the following: a city or township government, county government, a nonprofit, having 501c3 status, state government, independent school district, or Native American tribal government. In order to be able to help with this grant, they have a webinar series called Seeding Success, which is a series of 4 45-minute webinars that help provide technical assistance to help those that are interested in applying with developing, expanding, and sustaining a robust farm-to-school program. Now, the grant window is currently closed for fiscal year 2023, but they should be opening later this year for fiscal year 2024. So keep an eye out for that on their website. And this is additional information for that specific grant. So this is what the grant can be used funding for, such as training, supporting operations, purchasing equipment, developing partnerships, and implementing programs. In addition, the National School Lunch Act also directs that the Secretary of Agriculture to ensure geographic diversity and equitable treatment of urban, rural, and tribal communities in the distribution of grant awards. There's also a high priority to funding projects that make local food products available, serve a high proportion of children who are eligible for free or reduced price lunches, demonstrating collaboration between schools, non-governmental, and community-based organizations, demonstrate the potential for long-term program sustainability, as well as meeting any other criteria that they determine as appropriate. But there are also other grants. One other grant is kidsgardening.org, which has a series of 3 different grants that you can actually apply for, depending on if you are eligible. They have their Budding Botanist Grant, their Grow More Good Grassroots Grant, and their Youth Garden Grant. And so they have those 3 that you can apply to depending on your eligibility. And they also give grant application support with resources for grant writing tips and questions, and even a recorded grant funding webinar series to help you apply for these grants. Now, one grant that you may not have considered that is available in your community is Walmart Community Grants. These are local community grants that are awarded through an open application process and provide funding directly from Walmart and Sam's Club's facilities to local organizations throughout the United States. Their grants usually range from $250 to a maximum of $5,000. And eligible nonprofit organizations must operate on the local level in order to apply. So this includes an organization that holds a current tax-exempt status as a public charity, a recognized government entity such as state, county, or city agency, or a K-12 public or nonprofit private school, charter school, community, junior college, state private college, or university, or even a church or other faith-based organization. Grant applications for the calendar year are accepted on a quarterly basis, so there's 4 times throughout the year that they accept these grant applications. So double check their website to see when they are. And important for this grant to remember is organizations may only submit a total of 25 applications and or receive up to 25 grants within the current year grant cycle. They do have 8 different areas of funding, which are listed down below. And so you can easily look at those to see if you're hoping to get a grant for your farm to school program, where that's going to fit in for what you're going to be using the funding for. These are just a few grants that are available out there. Definitely go online and see what else may be available out there for you and your program as well. So farm to school is a national movement that's only growing more and more. We're seeing a huge increase in the number of schools and communities that are participating in these programs, and this is just a highlight of that. So you can see here in this graph that these are states across the country who are featuring local foods on their school menu as part of participating in farm to school. And so you can see that we're just growing and growing. So definitely join the movement. Think about it. See how you can get a program started in your community. See how you can help be a partner for someone else that may be starting it in your community. And if you have any questions, I will take those now, but also I'm going to provide my contact information for you here in case you have any questions here locally as well. Thank you.
Yeah. I have 2 things. First, I just wanted to thank you because this was super helpful.
Oh, good.
And I have used actually quite a few of the curriculum and lesson plans as
good, yeah.
starting things for my own lessons, and they've just been super helpful. So I just wanted to echo that. There's like so much out there that you don't have to feel like you're starting from scratch. But my question was, for the visiting people, like you mentioned, I didn't take notes as to where this was, but that there might be people in your community who could come visit and give demonstrations like on the soil retention.
Yeah.
Is that your office, or is that something that we would reach out to, like a specific, more specific localized organization?
Yeah, great question. So there, at least here in Indiana, there is a soil and water conservation district office in every county, so 92 across the entire state. So if you're local, yeah, you can definitely reach out to us or to me and contact me about what we can do to help do programs for soil health at your school. But as far as also just nationwide, there are soil and water conservation districts all across the country.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you do, is it more a one-time visit on a particular topic, or do you do continuum type? And I guess if it's a different topic every time, it still would be a one-time, but.
I can work with you to do just about anything. So it can be a one-time program if you just want to touch on one thing, or we can expand it into a whole program series where we can come multiple times throughout the year. And if you don't want to talk about the same topic every time, if you want to change it up every time, we can definitely do that. We can work with you to kind of help meet your goal with what you want to do.
And is that a free service for schools?
Yes. So for us out of our office, it is currently free. So what you would need to do is just to contact our office or by calling our number here, or just reaching out to me via email to talk with me about what you have in mind, essentially, and we can work together to make that happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious if you find, or if there's been any patterns where like the curriculum inspires the hands-on aspect, or if it's like the hands-on stuff inspires more curriculum to get developed.
I think that they can do both sometimes. Sometimes one just kind of inspires the other, or vice versa, honestly. Just like with things talking about like pollinators, for example, sometimes having that hands-on like activity that or game that we do helps make that connection for students, or even vice versa. They want to talk about pollinators and it's like, what can I do to reach them and make it something that they can easily understand, that they find exciting to learn about at the same time and wanting to learn more too. So kind of making that emotional connection too, because when you're excited about something, you just want to learn more about it, right? So kind of helping inspire that feeling too.
Is it pretty easy to pull things out of these various curriculums and tie it to whatever state it is, their state science standards? Is it pretty easy for the teachers to do that so that they can
Definitely,
show
yeah.
how this is impacting that?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So at least for here in Indiana, I know that there's quite a few, especially since Indiana just updated their science standards back in 22 to more align with next generation science standards nationwide. But if you look through the curriculum, especially for each grade level, there's easily ways that you can tie in those state standards into the lesson plan or into farm to school to be able to kind of meet all of those different aspects while still keeping up your farm to school program and your curriculum too. Very good question.
Yeah, that's probably the number one question that I get consulting with schools, is needing the standards to push those things forward in their administration and funding. So yeah, I'm noticing there's more and more.
Yeah,
More stuff that includes that.
and I know especially with like the next generation science standards, since Indiana has taken a little while to kind of meet up with that nationwide sort of standard, there's a little bit of fear with, oh, how am I going to meet with my current curriculum? Or like, what do I need to change? What do I need to implement? And with also wanting to do farm to school at the same time, it can seem very overwhelming. But there's so many people out there and so many resources out there that are there to be helpful, or people that you can contact that you can ask these questions or work with to be able to kind of make it all happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
That's it.
much. Thank you guys.
Thank you.